Welcome to the 2024 National Crime Victims Service Awards ceremony. If you are able, please rise for the presentation of colors by the United States Marine Corps Color Guard, followed by the national anthem performed by Master Gunnery Sergeant Kevin Meunier.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Please be seated and turn your attention to the screen for the 2024 NCVRW theme video that explores this year's theme, How Would You Help? Options, Services, and Hope for Crime Survivors.
We all have a role to play in helping crime victims find healing. Knowing what the options are is so important because every survivor is different. Services are how we operationalize those options. And hope is that catalyst that can change the trajectory of someone's life. You can be the one to give that person hope.
At the heart of domestic violence is one person exercising control over another. Anything and everything can be used to hold you in that control cycle, and pets are used.
Hey, who do we have here?
Oftentimes, women do not leave an abusive relationship because they would leave their pet behind.
The primary purpose of what we do is to hold space for families with pets. It's trauma-informed care. It teaches both pets and their pet owners how to interact with in a way that reduces anxiety. It has been really cool to witness the transformation when you see people progress to being more confident.
And it has been a game changer because this takes away one more barrier to coming into shelter for these women and children.
Uvalde, Texas is my hometown. This is a community that has been impacted by ongoing exposure to violence. In the immediate aftermath of the tragedy at Robb Elementary, survivors were in pain.
We could think about what kinds of readings might be helpful for them to understand how people that were directly impacted being at the center of experiencing trauma or harm and it rippling out to affect bigger circles.
I'm a researcher at the University of Texas at Austin. I reached out to colleagues across campus who I knew had treated children that were victims of gun violence. We realized there wasn't a playbook that could work in a rural town like Uvalde. So we worked with community members to develop a resource guide that is available both in English and in Spanish to start to pull together and help people access those resources. It's inspiring to see the commitment by community members to help each other, especially in these crucial moments when we're trying to support victims and survivors of mass violence.
With the Route 91 Harvest Festival shooting, we had people from all over the world, so the ripple effects went across the globe.
People within Las Vegas started the gardens downtown as a temporary memorial.
It's so important to hear the voices of survivors of crime and to engage with them because there is an opportunity for healing in the process of doing a memorial.
As we went about our work as a committee, we looked to the community to provide us guidance, to provide us insight, to provide us with ideas. This was something they could do that they'd never been asked to do before.
As an artist and a community member, you never know who you're going to touch. There's something inside of you that you're able to express that will bring joy to other people.
There were so many beacons of light, people wanting to help in whatever capacity they could. This is a memorial to that goodness, to that shared light, and not just the evil that happened that night.
No matter who a survivor comes in contact with, that person may be the bridge to the help that they need to find healing. Everybody has a role to play. How would you help?
We now invite Christina Rose, Director of the Office for Victims of Crime, to the podium to welcome you to today's event.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's wonderful to see all of you here today. Welcome to the 2024 National Crime Victims Service Awards ceremony. Isn't this venue just beautiful? We're so grateful to the National Park Service for allowing us to have this event here. We're also grateful to the victim specialists at the National Park Service who provide services and care for all of the crime victims and survivors where crimes occur in the national parks. We've been a proud funder of their program for many years. We're honored to be joined today by Assistant Attorney General Amy Solomon, you'll hear more from Amy in just a moment. I do want to embarrass her and thank her for her stellar leadership and for her deep support for the work that we do at OVC. We wouldn't be able to be as successful as we are without Amy's support, so thank you. I want to welcome all of our distinguished guests today.
including Rosie Hidalgo from the Office on Violence Against Women, Helena Heath from the SMART Office, Maureen Hennenberg, one of our Assistant Attorney General in the Office of Justice Programs. I want to welcome all of my colleagues from across the department, from other federal agencies, and from national victim service organizations across the country. Most of all, welcome to all of the victims, survivors, and service providers who are here to celebrate the work with us of some very special people. I want to recognize Assistant Inspector in Charge, Brendan Donahue. Where are you, sir? There you are. Hello. He's from the United States Postal Inspection Service. The USPIS helps us each year raising awareness about victims' rights and services by ensuring that our NCVRW posters and our brochures are in post offices all around the country. We are so grateful. I know many of you were with us last evening for the candlelight vigil as we lifted up and paid tribute to the voices of survivors and those who helped them. Last night we heard from two extraordinary individuals, Tony Edwards and Brenda Glass, who I know is so happy she is not sitting up here now. She can just relax today. But Brenda and Tony spoke so eloquently about how victimization impacted their lives, but it also served as a catalyst for the work that they're doing now to help others. Today, you're going to meet a whole group of extraordinary people who have given so much to ensure that survivors have options, services, and rights. In his 1978 commencement speech at the University of Virginia, Justice Thurgood Marshall reminded the graduating class that it is first and foremost essential that the people be well informed. And then he invited the graduating class to listen to others. Do not wait for others to move out. Where you see wrong or inequality or injustice, speak out. There are so many rich lessons in the speech that he gave that day, but this particular quote really resonates, especially with this year's National Crime Victims' Rights Week theme. It challenges all of us to be well-informed and prepared to help survivors and victims of crime. Now, this year marks the 40th anniversary of the Victims of Crime Act. We also call it VOCA, and we will be recognizing this anniversary throughout the year. VOCA was first passed in 1984, and it's established so much of what we've come to rely on for ensuring rights, access, and options for survivors. The Crime Victims Fund, the Federal Notification System, discretionary grants for victim service organizations, victim assistance positions in the Department of Justice, financial support for the Children's Justice Act, assistance and compensation for victims and survivors of mass violence. In 1988, that law was amended, establishing OVC as the administrator of the Crime Victims Fund. Now, most of you probably already know that the Crime Victims Fund is not made up of taxpayer dollars, but it's made up of fines and fees from federal criminal offenses. Through VOCA, we were able to, with a lot of help from Congress, establish the Tribal Victim Services Set-Aside Program, and that was established to support American Indian and Alaska Native communities as they walk in healing with survivors and victims of crime. And because of VOCA and the CVF, OVC is able to support thousands of programs annually with millions of dollars invested in services provided directly to crime victims, and many of those who have suffered physical, emotional, and financial harm from victimization.
Because of VOCA, OVC grant funds were used to train almost 200,000 people last year to continually improve the quality of services provided to victims of crime. An example of this is the FBI's new and improved trauma notification training that they just released on Monday of this week. And I had the pleasure of joining FBI Director Wray to participate in their launch of the new training. It's an update of the We Regret to Inform You training. And with the new training, first responders all over the country who are tasked with the saddest job of all, death and trauma notification, will learn to do it in a trauma-informed and, most importantly, in a culturally sensitive way. VOCA funds paid for 400,000 victims, providing nightly emergency housing, crisis intervention, and individual advocacy. VOCA funds paid for the victim response to mass violence and terrorism events and created resiliency centers in communities that experienced these tragedies in Las Vegas, Uvalde, Pittsburgh, Buffalo, Parkland, and so many others. VOCA funds hotlines around the nation that operate 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, like the National Sexual Assault Hotline, Victim Connect, the National Domestic Violence Hotline, and the Elder Justice Hotline. In short, the CVF is the lifeline for victim assistance and victim compensation. But the solvency of the Crime Victims Fund is in danger. Deposits into the fund have decreased over the years, meaning less money is going to the states to fund community programs, and this means fewer victims may be served. We were so grateful to Congress for passing the VOCA fix in 2021, mandating that penalties from federal deferred and non-prosecution agreements also be added to the Crime Victims Fund rather than going to the General Treasury. Since the VOCA fix was passed, over $1 billion has been deposited into the fund. Unfortunately, it hasn't solved the problem the way we thought it would. Please know that OVC and all of DOJ are actively working to identify ways to keep the fund solvent. The President's, thanks. The President's fiscal year 25 budget proposal contains a legislative proposal to infuse funds and stability into the CVF. And we've learned of a large settlement that is coming our way of $1.5 billion. And these things give us hope. We are so grateful to the advocates, the legislators, and the survivors who are working so hard on behalf of all victims and survivors to ensure that funding for victim services is not forgotten. I mentioned earlier that the Victims of Crime Act created crime victim compensation. The purpose of the Victim Compensation Program is to provide life-saving reimbursement for out-of-pocket expenses such as medical and mental health appointments, lost wages, transportation, funeral and burial costs. Each state has its own compensation program that is made up of VOCA funds and their own state funding. Over the years, we have heard from far too many people, especially those in underserved communities, that they didn't know about this program or they were deemed ineligible because of past criminal history or the perception that they contributed to their own victimization. So 2 years ago, on this very stage, we made revising the Crime Victim Compensation Guidelines a top priority for OVC and for OJP. We made revisions to enhance equity and access to the compensation program by expanding victim eligibility so a criminal history will may no longer make someone ineligible for crime victim compensation. It will also provide comprehensive coverage of victim needs and will increase program access. For example, eliminating the need to have the forms notarized before they can be turned in to the compensation office. We posted the proposed rule for public comment, and we've received all of the comments in that 60-day period, all 3,800 of them, and we are working through each and every one of them. We hope to have the final rule published by the end of the year, because it's been over 20 years since this rule was updated, and it's always the right time to do the right thing. And now, on to the main reason we are here today, to honor this year's outstanding Crime Victim Service awardees. This year's honorees are a collective of individuals who quite literally come from all across the United States, from small towns and large, rural and urban. They all have different backgrounds and different paths, but they do have one thing in common. As Justice Marshall challenged, they did not wait for others to move out. Where they saw need or injustice or inequality, they acted, and we are better because of their work. Now it is my pleasure to introduce Assistant Attorney General Amy Solomon of the Office of Justice Programs.
Thank you, Chris. And good afternoon, everyone. I am so pleased to be here to join all of you to honor our exceptional award recipients today and to recognize the tireless work of so many victim service providers and advocates across the country. I want to echo our thanks to the National Park Service for the coordination it took to secure this room that is worthy of the space of those who we are honoring today. And I'm also grateful to the Postal Inspection System for taking the time to be here today and for your partnership throughout the year. Now, I'm especially grateful to Chris for her leadership and to the talented and hardworking team at OVC, who not only serves to shine the light so brightly on these issues during the National Crime Victims' Rights Week, but is a constant source of light throughout the year. We are so fortunate. I see people in this corner of the room so fortunate to have this group fighting on behalf of all of you every day, and that commitment comes through every single day. And I also want to recognize the work that went into last night's vigil, which was beautiful and moving and powerful, and all of us who were there came away just feeling the spirit of this week and why we are here. So this group from OVC is of course inspired by the thousands of professionals throughout the nation who work in local and tribal victim service organizations, in state victim assistance and compensation programs, in police departments, in prosecutors' offices, in hospital settings, delivering critical assistance and support to crime victims and survivors. These dedicated professionals, and so many of you are here joining us today, you are what motivate us to do what we do. You motivate us in countless ways at the Department of Justice. And even more, you inspire in all of us a hope for a better world. This is why we gather each year in April to celebrate and commemorate, but also to recommit to becoming a more just nation, one that lives up to its promises of fair treatment and equal justice, and one where the dignity and the worth of every person is honored and respected. These principles are embodied in victim-serving organizations and professionals, and we are so much richer for your service. We know that even heroes need support. Everyone can make a difference, and that difference is even greater when everyone plays a part. Chris spoke last night about this year's theme for the National Crime Victims' Rights Week. How would you help? Options, services, and hope for crime survivors. And I can't help but think that this theme echoes another civil rights icon. Dr. King famously said that life's most persistent and urgent question is, what are you doing for others? And at the Office of Justice Programs, we ask ourselves that question every day. We are driven by this question, and we follow up with another one: what more can we do? Every day, every meeting, that's what the colleagues here are asking. So I'm very proud of what we have done. Under Chris's leadership, OVC has funded thousands of local and tribal assistance programs that have reached countless victims and survivors. Last year alone, nearly 900,000 children and youth and more than 300,000 victims that were aged 60 and over received services for the first time. Over 100,000 victims who identified as lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, intersex, or asexual received services and support. More than 7,500 survivors of human trafficking were served every quarter last year, and over a third of them were seeking services for the first time. 500,000 victims of sexual assault and domestic violence received services each quarter. And in American Indian and Alaska Native communities, more than 50,000 victims were served by 270 different tribal organizations who are supported by OVC. This is a snapshot of the long reach of OVC-funded services, services that are provided by committed, compassionate professionals in every corner of the country. But let us not forget that the ultimate goal here, our North Star, is to prevent victimization altogether. We want to spare people the pain and the trauma in the first place. But until then, we are committed to expanding our collective reach because the need for services remains so great. Too many victims still don't know where to turn for help. Too many are still left to shoulder the burden of trauma alone. We're slowly closing long-standing gaps in our support for crime survivors, but there is so much left to do. We know that well-funded, well-staffed victim services programs are essential to healing and empowerment, but our goal of reaching every crime victim demands an even broader commitment from every sector of our community. These complex challenges faced by crime victims have too often and too conveniently been left to our criminal justice system to resolve. We know that not all survivors of crime are looking for justice inside the courtroom, and I think we would all agree the issues surrounding justice and healing and the support and well-being of our neighbors, friends, and loved ones are matters in which every part of the community has a stake. This goes for public safety as a whole. No one sector, no single set of institutions should be expected to answer for the health and the safety of the whole community. At OJP, we are working so hard to build strong community infrastructure that's capable of interrupting cycles of harm, of victimization, of trauma. And we're increasing our investments in community-based organizations as a complement to the work of criminal justice agencies. We're expanding the network of community actors who are engaged to intervene and to respond to crime and violence, and we are leaning on and supporting experts who have the closest ties to members of those communities. This is all part of our mission to advance community safety, to build community trust, and to strengthen the community's role as co-producer of safety and justice. Our Office of Victims' Crime is really leading the way here. Just a few examples. Through their National Center for Culturally Responsive Victim Services, they are building the capacity of organizations that serve victims in historically marginalized and underserved areas. Through the Health Alliance for Violence Intervention and the Advancing Hospital-Based Victim Services Program, OVC is helping to bring to scale a system of services where survivors of gun violence can get treatment and support in addition to urgent medical care. And through the Hate Crime Victim Assistance Program and the new Trauma Recovery Center initiative, OVC is modeling an intermediary approach that will allow us to reach small organizations that often have the closest ties to the people that they seek to serve. OVC is also consulting the expertise and perspective of survivors themselves. Across the Office of Justice Programs, we're making a concerted effort to listen to the voices of people with lived experiences, people who have confronted gun violence, young people who have suffered trauma, and who have been through the justice system and emerged with wisdom and insights that they are using to benefit others. No one brings greater clarity to the challenges of community safety than someone who has suffered the experience of victimization, and no one is in a better position to help identify solutions that will make a difference. We need the voices of survivors at the center of our work to drive change that serves the interests of all victims. So we're going to continue to listen, we're going to continue to learn, and we will continue to support the tireless and essential work that so many of you are doing every day in your communities. We are so grateful for your service. We're proud to be your partners, and a big congratulations to our award winners. Thank you all for everything that you do.
Okay, so many of you know how this next portion proceeds, but for those of you who have not been to one of these before, I'll give you a quick overview. Through Video Action, our wonderful film company, we've produced videos for each one of our award recipients that details their work. So we're going to show these videos in 2 groups of 4. After each group of video plays, we'll invite the award recipients up one at a time to receive their award to the thunderous applause here and via the live stream. So let's get started. Please play the first 4 videos.
Hope is the belief that the future will be better than today and that we have the power to make it so.
Is hope a wish? No. We wish for things all the time. It's a cognitive process. It's a mindset.
And the reason this is so important is because it helps us understand that hope can be taught.
If you think about any program or service out there that supports a victim of crime, when that person walks in the door, hope has been activated. When we nurture somebody's hope, we're teaching them how to imagine themselves in the future.
Hope is very personal to me. I spent my youth from 8th grade throughout high school as a homeless youth. And so I spent my days focused on where am I going to eat, where am I going to sleep, how am I going to stay safe. And so as I came to the University of Oklahoma and established the Hope Research Center, I began to understand that this important psychological strength and coping resource of hope was the very essence of my own survival.
I mean, on the one hand, we've had...
So we train the organizations around a hope-centered and trauma-informed model.
Our agency employs about 6,000 people, and our frontline staff are faced with secondary trauma on a daily basis. So every time we speak to our workforce about Hope Science, we're giving them some tools and a little bit of protection against the things that they go face every day.
It changes the way you interact from there on out. The future can be better than their past, and I can make that future possible. My organization has pathways to make that future possible. But the other thing is it's really, really good for that worker.
We teach them how to nurture their own hope first. You cannot give what you do not have. So in understanding how to nurture hope in staff, they can lend hope to the victims and survivors that they're serving.
We can see things like intent to remain employed go up, burnout symptoms go down, and secondary trauma symptoms be reduced.
Hope is such a fundamental part of who we are, what it means to be human. I want people to do it with intention, to be very intentional in nurturing the hope of those around us.
El Centro is characterized by the fact that it's an agricultural area as well as a really small community. There's a high rise in fentanyl use right now, methamphetamines, and a lot of our clients are impacted by drugs.
As a social worker in her position, she carries some of the more complex cases. She works with victims of human trafficking, of severe physical abuse, of sexual abuse.
I do this work because I'm passionate. I'm passionate about working and serving children that have experienced some sort of abuse, neglect, to make sure that they're protected and looked after. Even just something as simple as getting children to attend their school of origin, I would be the one to step in to take them to and from school. The work I do helps families that are hurting by providing them that support.
Jocelyn always takes an above and beyond approach to service provision. She really takes the time to understand not just the work that she's performing within the agency that she's working, but also how other agencies work.
We're from a rural community, so we are very limited in terms of mental health services, facilities that will treat or diagnose child abuse. A lot of times we travel to and from San Diego to Los Angeles in order to access those services. The lessons I've learned through the work that I'm doing has helped me innovate because my goal is always to do what's in the child's best interest.
Through her advocacy, Jocelyn is able to provide a lot more options to victims of crime. She's able to advocate and be their voice when they can't speak for themselves.
Providing options for survivors gives them hope because it gives them an opportunity to see there are people that are within child welfare that are trying to help, that are trying to be supportive and guiding them and supporting them in the best possible way to gain that stability, that safety, that justice and healing that they deserve.
One in 4 women have been sexually assaulted, and yet only about 25% of hospitals have SANE programs. There is a huge need here to teach people how to do this in a trauma-informed way. When we decided to do telesane for a national telemedicine center, we wanted to do it very thoughtfully and very intentionally because this has never been done before. In our pilot, we needed to be working nationally, serving underserved populations. When we bring on a new site, we do 2 to 3 hour training with some nurses at that hospital. If they have a lot of experience, then we will be an extra set of ears, an extra set of eyes in the room. If they have not cared for a patient before, we tell them that we will meet them where they are and where the patient is. We will support them in whatever way they need. Our patients' safety, their confidentiality and privacy is utmost in our mind. We will let them know we're the only one in the room and that nothing is ever recorded. Like our in-person program, we also wanted to involve Rape Crisis. So Rape Crisis is called into the hospital, so they are on site with the patient. We're working together as a team, and the patient is part of that team. As a state, we are on our path to 100% of hospitals, and telesane was pivotal in our ability to do that. 97% of our patients now accept this service, and we have cared for 903 patients. We've been working with the International Association of Forensic Nurses to develop their own telesane programs. They are serving 100 hospitals that never had SANE services before, and they're replicating our model. It's really the basis and essence of nursing care. You have to get it right, and so we work really hard to get it right.
I grew up in a community riddled by poverty and violence. I was shot twice in my back while leaving a corner store in my neighborhood, and those bullets nearly ended my life. Like many of you, I am a survivor of a gun violence. I was shot in an incident that ended my basketball career, and like so many people in this room never received any support or help to help me deal with that. So that kind of... I joined Crime Survivors for Safety and Justice on the 6-year anniversary of my shooting. For many victims, restorative practices play a key role in helping survivors identify what does justice look like. We are a national network of over 200,000 crime survivors from across the country that prioritizes healing, prevention, and recovery over more spending on incarceration. I do this work thinking about the thousands of survivors across the country who have experienced some type of victimization and never got any help or resources to help them heal and recover from violence.
Are y'all ready to bring some healing and some change to the Capitol?
We've been able to cultivate survivors as leaders in their local communities because as survivors, we are the experts. What is meant to me and to our community of survivors is hope. They're able to change policies. That they're able to start their own organizations to provide services that they didn't receive.
Aswad lived experience has transformed to us passing over 100 bills across the country.
We've been able to establish 54 trauma recovery centers across the country that provides wraparound services to help meet the needs of the survivors who are falling through the cracks.
He's going to push to make sure that every survivor who experienced harm feel that they are treated with dignity.
Crime Survivors for Safety and Justice is our healing community because we believe that when survivors speak, change happens.
The Building Knowledge Through Research Award goes to the Hope Research Center at the University of Oklahoma. Accepting the award on behalf of the center are Dr. Chan Hillman and Dr. Angela Ferris. The Allied Professional Award goes to Jocelyn Mejia with the Children and Family Services Division of Imperial County Department of Social Services. The Allied Professional Award goes to Joan Meunier-Sham of the Massachusetts Sexual Assault Nurse Examiner Program. The Survivor Voices Award goes to Aswad Thomas of Crime Survivors for Safety and Justice.
I was sensitized at an early age to the level of exclusion for people with disabilities, and that didn't sit right with me.
Michelle is a practitioner, a researcher, and a scholar focusing on the needs of people with disabilities, and particularly the barriers that contribute to significantly different levels of risk for them.
The reason that this is novel is several professions don't have any training in intimate partner violence.
Part of her objective is the systematic education of highly expert practitioners in areas that are completely new to them.
But we know that people with disabilities are victimized at rates of 2.5 to 3 times greater than the non-disabled population. We can't conduct research about people with disabilities without people with disabilities. At Barrier Free Living, we undertook the largest study to date to create a demographic profile of women with disabilities who experienced intimate partner violence, and we've created interventions for each different disability group.
She can help people understand why data gathering is so important and how, as a staff member, how you can contribute.
Another program is focused on spinal cord injury and intimate partner violence.
These women need people to advocate for them and also have to know different strategies, like how to get out of a situation, and also, I think, ultimately be empowered.
There's really an inequity across the country for many people with disabilities in their opportunities to get good health care. And so the physician training program, which Dr. Ballan introduced to the Renaissance School of Medicine, has become a model across the country.
I think it's phenomenal that Michelle is shedding light on a serious silent issue that not a lot of people are aware of.
These projects are just a step in a direction so that other individuals with disabilities can be leading the way and non-disabled people can continue to learn from them.
I began my career as a budget analyst within the Office of the District Attorney in Los Angeles, California. I was responsible for managing the Victim Assistance Program. The field was like the new frontier. I realized the victim advocates had an opportunity to make a difference in the lives of others. Whatever my advocates needed, my job was to ensure that those resources were provided to them.
Herman is rolling thunder on bending the arc of justice. He was part of the individual and collective change that really made a difference, that really said victims' rights are important, that really said we need to start listening to survivors.
I became the director of the Victim Assistance Program for the state of Texas. One of my responsibilities was to modernize the compensation program. That was a massive undertaking, but we were able to accomplish that. The new and emerging areas for me has been in environmental crime. I've had the opportunity to work very closely with the EPA and in DOJ Environmental Division and institutionalize victim assistance programs in each of those respective agencies. I think about the work I've done over these many years, and the VINE program really changed the landscape of the way in which we worked closely with victims. I have to also say, the other thing that I'm most proud of is the Mass Violence Toolkit.
Herman has gone to countless communities that are suffering, and he helps communities try to figure out what do the survivors of mass violence need. And I think equally important, what does the impacted community need? So he has been a true asset to all of us in the mass violence field as someone who sets really high standards for going into a community at a very, very difficult time.
I would call myself a national victim advocate. What compelled me was just the idea that you could provide this incredible support to individuals who had been victimized, and you could help them in their recovery. And you know you're making a difference in the most profound and wonderful way.
I've been able to watch some cases go from the moment that the crime occurred up until post-conviction, and it's given me great joy to see people find hope.
Good to see you. Always, always, always. I'm good.
And you have on Keith's shirt?
I do.
When I joined the Texas Department of Public Safety, they had no victim services at all. When I left the program, we had 8 regional victim services counselors, all licensed clinicians. A huge peer support program made up of highway patrol troopers, criminal investigators, Texas Rangers, their spouses. We saw a huge shift in the way that the agency was providing services to victims of violent crime, and a tremendous shift in the way that victims were viewing that agency as well. Victim Services, this is Angie. How can I help? When I came to the Texas Department of Criminal Justice, we made some sweeping changes. We used to only be able to make notifications with letters. We now can do them with texts, emails, and letters. What are like the top 5 things that you think are most important when you're teaching? Victims are able to go in and log on the portal and self-select their own notifications. We're able to do electronic victim impact statements. There's just a whole plethora of opportunities. We were able to have the Texas Victim Assistance Academy transferred to us, and we created an online curriculum, and it was the very first one in the United States. We offer victim offender mediation dialogue. We also have the hotline, and we now have 10 positions to work with our staff when they've experienced critical incidents. I have been to every National Police Week in the last 26 years. I am the counselor for the 6-year-olds who lost their parent in the line of duty. So I've developed a very significant bond with those kids. When you can be in a space with someone who's been victimized or exposed to a trauma, you make such a huge difference. And not everybody gets to get up every day and go to work and do that.
The foundation of what I do has become the fact that we do not exist in this world alone. It's my job as a community member to help those around me and to help those that don't always have a voice. When I was in the 1st grade, a friend of mine told me that she was being abused. I saw someone that had experienced pain that I saw as preventable. When I was 10 and I led my very first child abuse awareness march, my community rallied behind our young people. I was able to say that we have the ability to make change on this issue.
Forward together, not one step back.
And to this day, I see justice as community. I see justice as love. I see justice as empathy. There's this massive part of me that said that we just had to do more. We put together young people, and together we formed Hero Voices. We were talking to our chief of police one day, and I was really curious about what happens once a child is found to be in an abusive situation. What happens? And he told me that they were brought to the hospital room. That was the moment where we decided to recreate these hospital rooms and to establish a safe space, ensuring that there was a space for young people who have just experienced horrendous traumas to go. We were creating rooms built for young people by young people. Hero Voices is an organization dedicated to the empowerment of young people by encouraging them to get involved. And so if a young person is passionate about an issue, they can come to us, tell us what you want to do, and we're going to help you every single step of the way. Young people have not always been heard, and I think legislative advocacy is a great way to change that. This past summer, we were able to get 13 bills introduced. They were all focused on how do we ensure that we're creating a world where young people can thrive. I'm really, really proud to be able to live in a space and to work in a space where victims are our #1 priority.
The Building Knowledge Through Research Award goes to Dr. Michelle Ballan with the School of Social Welfare at Stony Brook University. The National Crime Victim Service Award goes to Herman Milholland of Milholland and Associates. The National Crime Victim Service Award goes to Angela McCowan at the Texas Department of Criminal Justice, Victim Services Division. The Tomorrow's Leader Award goes to Elijah Lee of Hear Our Voices. Distinguished guests, these are your 2024 National Crime Victim Service Award recipients.
Oh my gosh, they're so incredible. All of you are amazing. I feel fortunate to be in this field because you all are in this field. And I was thinking about how we have so many people here who have paved the way for us, and have been around to, see the evolution in crime victims' rights and services. And then we can feel good about having people like Elijah that are going to be able to pick up the mantle and move forward. Thank you. Thank you for being here with us and allowing us to bestow these honors upon you. We're very, very proud of you. We are just about to the end of our event today. And I want to take one last moment to recognize some folks. And they're the people that made all of this possible. I want to thank Susan Freight. Susan, can you stand up? There she is. She is the magic behind the scenes, really made all of this happen. Emily Barenfield. Emily? And Lisa Ewing, the newest member of our communications team. I want to thank TSC Live for their production assistance, our ASL interpreters, Aaron Krug and Blake Sensenese. The marketing team at Leidos that is sharing all of the NCVRW news this week, and to the wonderful and amazing Robin Smith and all of her producers and editors at Video Action. I also want to thank Sasha, the enforcer, Rutizer, for all of her assistance, the logistics of last night and today, and just for being a wonderful chief of staff at OVC. I do want to thank all of the OVC staff. They have been so important to the programming that we have been able to do these past few years, well, many, many years, actually, not just since I've been director, for sure. But I'd like them right now to stand and be recognized, all of the OVC staff that are here today, please. I want to thank you all for your hard work and your dedication, for getting up and going to work every day, for your passion for victim advocacy, and you make my job a delight. Thank you. So this is it. We're done. I can't thank you all enough for being here. It's been a wonderful year, and we look forward to the next one with all of you. We'll see you next year.